In Part 1, we uncovered the chaos of 1905, from Bloody Sunday in Russia to Einstein's world-changing theory. But what we're about to show you was buried beneath that chaos, forgotten by most, erased by time. In this episode, we reveal the 10 events that history almost buried, from a massacre disguised as a rebellion to a protest that sparked a nation's awakening. These aren't just headlines. They were tipping points, buried beneath the noise of empire, invention, and war. This is 1905, Part 2. The year history tried to erase. But now, you're going to remember. On January 2nd, 1905, the fortress they called Impregnable finally fell. For 323 days, the Japanese laid siege to Russia's strongest coastal stronghold. The Russian fleet had been sunk. Their land forces were starving. The walls were cracked open by constant shelling. When General Stossel surrendered, he wasn't just giving up a city. He was handing over a symbol of Russian imperial pride. The fall of Port Arthur shook the world. Russia had been humiliated by an Asian power, something the West never imagined. But for Japan, it was a taste of rising power, and the world would feel it again, soon enough. On February 4th, 1905, the streets of Buenos Aires erupted in gunfire. The Radical Civic Union had planned a nationwide uprising, but most of Argentina never joined. Instead of a revolution, the rebels were met with overwhelming force from the army. It was over within 48 hours. Hundreds were arrested. Dozens were dead. The newspapers called it a betrayal. The government called it treason. But the people, they called it a warning. Though it failed, the 1905 uprising marked a turning point. The flame of rebellion wouldn't die. It would smolder beneath Argentina for decades. On March 31st, 1905, the German Kaiser rode into Tangier on horseback and shattered Europe's balance of power with a smile. He declared support for Moroccan independence, right in France's colonial backyard. The speech ignited a diplomatic firestorm. Britain and France saw it as a direct threat. It wasn't just Morocco at stake, it was the future of European alliances. France responded by tightening its grip on Morocco. Germany demanded an international conference. The crisis would spiral for months, laying the groundwork for World War I. And it all began with one rider, in one city, on one sunny day. On April 4th, 1905, just after dawn, the ground in India's Kangra Valley began to tremble. Then the hills roared. In 3 minutes, nearly every building in the city of Kangra crumbled to dust. More than 19,000 people died in moments. Some were buried alive beneath temples and homes they had built by hand. Hospitals were crushed. The dead lay in rows under open skies. Survivors searched for loved ones, or for meaning. It was one of the deadliest earthquakes in Indian history, yet the world barely noticed. Kangra's temples were shattered, but the valley rebuilt, stone by stone, prayer by prayer. On July 11, 1905, a group of 29 black men crossed into Canada because no hotel in America would host them. Led by W.E.B. Du Bois, they formed the Niagara movement, a defiant call for full civil rights. Their demands? Voting rights, equal education, and an end to racial segregation. They declared, "We want full manhood suffrage, and we want it now." It was the first major civil rights movement of the 20th century. Du Bois would later say that Niagara was the beginning of a new dawn for our people. We're only halfway through, and already history's cracks are turning into quakes. If you've made it this far, you're not just watching history, you're living inside it. Give this video a like, so others can uncover these forgotten turning points too. And tell us in the comments, which moment hit you hardest, or what you think we missed. July 1905. Deep in German East Africa, whispers of rebellion moved with the wind. They called it the Maji Maji Rebellion, a war not just of guns, but of spirit. The Maji, a sacred potion, was believed to turn German bullets into water. Armed with spears, faith, and fire, they stormed colonial outposts across the South. German forces retaliated with brutal precision and machine guns. Villages were burned. Tens of thousands perished. But the memory of resistance endured. The Maji Maji Rebellion may have failed, but it marked the first united stand against colonial rule in East Africa. On September 2nd, 1905, the Chinese imperial examination system was abolished after 1,300 years. For over a millennium, it had shaped who could rise and who remained invisible. Generations had studied under candlelight, chasing the promise of status and honor. But China was changing, and the old Confucian order was breaking. The exams were ended, replaced by a new Western-style education system. Some celebrated it as progress. Others saw it as the death of China's soul. One chapter closed, and an uncertain century began. On October 5, 1905, the Wright brothers launched something the world barely noticed, yet it would change everything. The Flyer 3 soared for 38 minutes, a record flight, a world-changing moment. Before this, no one had flown longer than a few seconds. The Wrights were inventors, tinkerers, and ignored by most newspapers of the time. But those 24 miles in the air marked the first real flight in human history. History didn't cheer. But the skies would never be the same again. On October 16, 1905, the British Raj carved Bengal in two, claiming it was for efficiency. But to Indians, it was a thinly veiled plan to divide Hindus and Muslims. The outrage was immediate. Shops closed, streets filled. Protesters marched in silence. It became the first mass political protest in modern Indian history. British officials were stunned, expecting only petitions, not people power. This was just the beginning. The fires of Indian independence had been lit. On October 30th, 1905, the Russian Empire shook, not from war, but from fear of its own people. Months of strikes, protests, and mutinies had forced the autocrat to blink. His answer came in ink, a document that promised rights and feared revolution more than reform. It granted a parliament, civil rights, but kept the throne intact. To some, it was a victory. To others, a trap set in velvet. But history remembers. The ink of the October Manifesto didn't dry on democracy. It smeared into revolution. History doesn't pause when ink dries. It waits. Then it answers. From crumbling empires to voices rising in the streets. 1905 changed more than borders. It rewrote the way people dared to speak. If you felt history breathe in these moments, give this video a like, drop a comment. Which event left its mark on you? Tell us what you know that history left out. Subscribe for more stories that shaped the century, but got buried beneath it, because 1906 is coming, and it won't begin gently. Until next time.